10 NFL stars that were hated by their coaches. Star players and their coaches need to work as a team to make their relationship work, more like strawberry and chocolate. The moment this bond is broken or infected, the team's performance is most times impacted. Roll back and relax as we check out 10 NFL stars who were despised by their coaches. Randy Moss and Brad Childress. What better way to start than a coach who committed career suicide by cutting off one of the best players on the team? Well, this is what happened. Brad Childress was the dictator of the Vikings, and he acted like the supreme lord, wanting losses and wins to go down on his terms. Childress was so bad that he failed to see the impact of his players on the future of the team. He failed to see what a good player Brett Favre was and used almost every opportunity he got to talk down on him. But this time around, with Randy Moss, well, he did more than just talk. He made a move that might have contributed to his dismissal from the Vikings. Childress, or should we say mighty Genghis Khan himself, took it upon himself to single-handedly dismiss Moss just 4 weeks after he was traded. Reason? He just didn't fit. Childress cut Moss from the team because Moss was just being Moss. The wide receiver was cut off before notifying the owner, the front office, or the players, because he had the chutzpah to question Childress's methods and because he was too honest for his own good. Childress really did commit a blunder because he did what was synonymous with saying the season was up. Moss's resume might not be eye-boggling, but he was a solid player and his presence on the team was positive. Not so long after dismissing Moss, Childress was fired as Vikings head coach after Minnesota lost to Green Bay. Perhaps he should have kept his wide receiver. Antonio Brown and Bruce Arians. Talking about wide receivers, Brown is another receiver who was not liked by his coach. Well, according to Brown, Arians was an abusive coach who forced his players to play even when injured, but when Brown pulled a huge stunt right in the middle of the game, football fans were not having any of his arguments because his actions were seen as plain petty. Brown legit pulled off his jersey, shoulder pads, and undershirt, leaving the game through the third quarter while his team had possession of the ball. His shirtless stunt almost overshadowed the comeback Tom Brady made with Cyril Grayson. Brown is a solid player for sure, but Bruce Arians was quick to dismiss him after his petty move mid-game, meaning there were issues underfoot. Football critics were on Arians' side after Brown was dismissed from the team, but after Arians' actions during the Buccaneers playoff game against the Eagles, fans aren't so sure if Brown was entirely at fault. And you can be sure Petty Brown picked on his former coach, taking a swipe at Andrew Adams. Vernon Davis and Mike Singletary. Another player-coach feud that extended even after the duo parted is that of tight end Davis and Singletary. The two of them never liked each other and they never bothered to hide it. Singletary made it his life's work to embarrass Davis in press talks, on the field, and even in the locker room. There was a point when Singletary sent Davis to the locker room and pulled his pants down just to show his players just how much they were getting their tails whipped. The NFL is really hilarious with different characters pulling stunts left and right. Singletary probably thought he was being featured in a Rise to Victory football movie and assumed that would push his team to their very best. Well, he was wrong, and after he departed from the team, Davis made it a point of duty to say exactly how he felt about him. When asked if he missed Singletary, he said no, and repeated it just in case he was being misunderstood or misheard. Keyshawn Johnson and John Gruden. Joining the long-standing wide receiver and coach feud are Keyshawn Johnson and John Gruden. This time around, we're faced with a dirty coach. Gruden didn't like Johnson much, and the wide receiver had very strong feelings against him as well. After an investigation of Gruden, it was discovered that he was a double-faced person who presented just one side of himself to the public. Racist, anti-gay, and misogynistic emails were linked to him, and it wasn't a good side at all. Keyshawn didn't let this go and built the momentum, describing him as a used car salesman who inherited a championship team built by Tony Dungy and Rick McKay. Man, this dude is a fraud. Y'all don't seem to understand he's selling you on something and you're buying it. He's been doing that for years, talking behind people's backs. That was one of his traits in Tampa, Keyshawn emphasized. Darius Slay and Matt Patricia. Back to troublesome coaches. Matt Patricia takes a comfy seat on this list with his pencil and ego. Patricia seemed to have an issue with cornerback Darius Slay, even though he tried as much as possible to gloss it over in public. After being named first-team All-Pro and leading the league in 8 interceptions in 2017, Patricia believed he was not elite enough for him. Like, dude, are you serious? Well, he didn't know when to stop, and he used a social media picture of Slay and another player to point out just how much Slay was sucking up to another player in a board meeting. That was just petty and unnecessary. And although Slay tried as much as possible to relate with him professionally, it's likely the Lions fans never forgave Patricia for trading one of the solid cornerbacks in the NFL for no reason. Thankfully, he didn't entirely get away with it, as he was fired at the end of the 2020 season. Good riddance. Jalen Ramsey and Doug Marrone. Ramsey joined Slay on the team of cornerbacks who've got issues with their coaches. Marrone didn't despise Ramsey outright, but the two had an ugly spat on the sideline. The star player on the team had been upset because Marrone failed to challenge a DeAndre Hopkins third-down catch. Marrone believed there was a process to waving the challenge flag and just wanted Ramsey to get over it. But based on their sideline spat that got so intense, they had to be separated by other players. It didn't seem Ramsey was really ready to be over it. Down till the game was over, Ramsey brooded over it, refusing to talk to the media, even going so far as to request to be traded. Le'Veon Bell and Adam Gassi, back to some good old back-to-back spat. Bell and Gassi really never saw eye to eye on matters, and neither tried to mask it. Right from day one, Gassi didn't really like the free agent. When asked if he'd want the running back for the 2020 season, he pointedly refused to answer and told the media to get their answer from GM Joe Douglas. That was super strange, considering Bell had just finished the first season out of a 4-year deal signed with the Jets. As expected, Bell didn't like the response and took to Twitter to show his displeasure, and this was just the beginning of the spat. After a depressing 30-10 loss weeks after recovering from a hamstring injury, Bell took to Twitter to rant, and he basically tore down the Jets and Adam Gassi. He set the Jet fans straight by making it crystal clear to them that the team gave him nothing but money, and in terms of opportunity, he got more of it with the Steelers. His singular season with the Steelers produced more touches than his 2 seasons with the Jets, and he pinned it on playing for an offensive-minded gurus when he needed to play for a defensive-minded head coach. Gassi wasn't too happy about this Twitter rant and pointed out that he would have preferred if Bell had brought up this issue to him personally. Big talk for someone who routinely trashed his players behind the scenes. Ben McAdoo and Odell Beckham Jr. This next one is interesting, considering the fact that the coach actually realized what he did wrong. OBJ is no doubt an excellent player, and McAdoo wanted to make the best of him, but ended up treating him terribly. McAdoo was always concocting schemes to get the ball to him, and not only mishandled him on the field, but off the field as well. After his dismissal as head coach of the Giants, he came clean on how he didn't see the bigger picture and could have done a better job rather than resorting to offensive schemes. Ron Dayne and Jim Fassel. Jumping back in time, we go to running back Ron Dayne and Jim Fassel. Dayne was in fact drafted by Fassel in the first round, but things pretty much went downhill from there, with Fassel trying so hard to micromanage the Heisman Trophy winning first-round pick and badgering him about his weight. The relationship soured so much that Fassel tried to turn him into a goal line, while favoring Dorsey Levens and Tiki Barber, all because the coach despised his playing style and his weight. Jim McMahon and Mike Ditka. Tweaking the wheels of time a little bit backward, we have Mike Ditka and his quarterback, Jim McMahon. These two were so against each other that they mostly never spoke to each other, except when they were screaming at each other or exchanging disses in the media. Reason? Ditka was a real proud coach who might know his way around the field, being a former player himself, but he sometimes made calls that the quarterback viewed as ludicrous. Hence, would call his own shots and follow through with it. The quarterback didn't exactly have an explosive arm, but he was a remarkable competitor who didn't just follow orders, but did his own calculations as he played. As expected, this annoyed Ditka so bad that he expressed his displeasure through angry or bitter words. What player-coach feud would you tag as petty, and which would you consider as born out of envy? Stop by the comments section to let us know. Thanks for tuning in.